Hi everyone. I'm so happy to see you here. Welcome to Digesting Midlife, How Gut Health Impacts Your Menopause Journey. Now I'm going to get right into it because I realize that your time is busy. So without further ado, I will go through it and explain how we're going to go through this. So, my name is Jenna Moore. If you haven't met me before, I'm an accredited health and menopause coach, and I've been doing this work for close to 10 years now. And today I would love to help you understand the link between gut health and menopause because it is fascinating and it is big. It's really big, it's quite complex. So I've tried to simplify it for you because gut doesn't just involve digestion, it also involves your immunity and your mental health. So it's a big deal. We're learning more and more about that, and we're also learning more and more about how a healthy microbiome, which is your gut bacteria, influences your peri and post menopause journey. So it's a big deal. Today, we're going to look at the connection between gut health and menopause symptoms, some strategies for optimizing digestion and your overall gut health during menopause, because this is really key. The difference between synbiotics, prebiotics, and probiotics. So, we're going to be talking about your innards and we're going to be talking a lot about poop. Okay, so bear with me on that one. So, understanding the gut menopause connection, because there definitely is one, and the more we know about it, the better off we're going to be. So, the basics first, though, like gut is a buzzword at the moment, and it has been for some time. But the interesting thing is that the research started on gut health way back in the 1600s or 1800s. Hippocrates was famously talking about it 2,500 years ago. The difference is today, because we have much more, we can dive deeper with the modern research available to us today. So it's incredible, and scientists are uncovering more and more, and they are the first to say that there is so much we don't know, that we don't know enough about it at all yet, except that it is an incredible ecosystem. So basically, the gut encompasses the gastrointestinal tract, which you can see on the diagram over here. Okay, so that's the GI tract, and it's a huge organ. It goes from our mouth to our anus, and on average, it's about 9 meters or 30 feet long. Isn't that crazy? Right within us. I've actually heard it compared to a tennis court. And in our gut is also our stomach. You know, these things are key. Our stomach, our liver, our gallbladder, our pancreas, and of course our large and small intestine, which that green large intestine there, that's also our colon, which is a big organ, right? So within here, and we have microbiome all over our bodies, but within our gut system, we have trillions and trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, and they are both good bacteria and bad bacteria. What we They're collectively known as our microbiome, our microbiota, our gut flora. They go by a few different names, and what we want there is a really abundant population of the good guys, the good bugs, good bacteria, and a diverse population of the good bacteria as well. So, the main job of our gut is the digestive system to process food. But it's also there to maintain our immunity, because a lot of us don't realize that 70 to 80% of immune cells live in there. It also produces 95% of our serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter often called our happy hormone. There's also some dopamine in there as well, who's in the same family as serotonin as well. So it's a very big influence on not just our digestion, but also our immunity and our mood, which is really key for women in midlife and women going through perimenopause. any stage of menopause actually. And the old adage used to be, you are what you eat, okay? But now that we know what we know, that's probably changed more to you are what your microbiome eats. But it's also you are what you absorb. Because if we don't have a lovely, healthy gut populated with lots of gorgeous good bugs, then we are not going to absorb nutrients as well. So that's really key to know. The other thing that helps our gut work beautifully is fiber from food and supplements and water. All important water, right? Because it helps to food move the food through and it helps us excrete. What we don't need is poop. So it works, we put food in our mouth, we chew, we swallow, it travels down that tube there, the gastrointestinal tract, to our stomach and our intestines, where it's broken down and absorbed, or it travels down to the end to the anus and it's eliminated. Now, the thing about microbiome and menopause research is that it's really tiny. There's not a lot of research out there. There's not even a lot in comparison to other topics of overall gut health research out there, but it's growing. And the same thing is this menopause microbiome link. It's tiny, but it is growing and it's definitely there. So it can make a big difference to your menopause journey. So we've got to talk about the gut-brain axis, which is also a bit of a buzzword, I think, but it incorporates physical and emotional sides to us because the brain and the gut are connected by the vagus nerve. So it's all a big network of nerves and it affects both physical and mental well-being. The interesting thing here, though, is that our gut actually has its very own sophisticated nervous system, and that's called the enteric nervous system. Often it's shortened to END, and it's often why you'll hear the gut being referred to as being the second brain in our body because it has millions and millions of neurons in there that send messages all around to our body. And it's in constant communication with our brain and our central nervous system. So that's why it's called the gut brain axis. And that physical and mental connection, like they are very interconnected, they can basically feel each other's pain. So if they're all working synergistically in harmony, then that's a great thing, a bit like our hormones actually. But the interesting thing about the enteric nervous system, or the gut's nervous system, is it can operate independently of our brain and our central nervous system. So an example, a simple example of that might be if you're feeling depressed or anxious and your appetite shifts. That could be to do with your enteric nervous system. So menopause and the microbiome. Okay, so a healthy gut equals diverse fungi, bacteria, and viruses, also known as microbiome, gut flora, microbiota, etc. I think we've established that. Now, a review in the Journal of Clinical Medicine 2021 found a link to estrogen levels. So, as most of us know, one of the hallmarks of menopause is a decline in estrogen, or specifically estradiol, because we have a family of estrogens. So estradiol is the estrogen most dominant during our fertile years, and this is what's reducing in menopause, even though in perimenopause it will go through peaks and troughs at times. But as it goes down in our bodies, so does the diversity of our microbiome. So menopause equals less population of good uh, gut bacteria and less diversity. And the interesting thing there is that some data on postmenopausal women showed that their microbiome was more similar to males. So it's definitely linked. There is definitely an estrogen microbiome link. So just to recap there, you have more bugs in your gut than you actually have cells in your body. Literally trillions of them. It's quite amazing, really. And what we want, what we're aiming for is an abundance of good guys, but a balance of both good and bad. They need to be balanced. We do need the bad guys in there as well. We just don't want too many of them. And we want a diverse population of them, or dysbiosis occurs. Now, dysbiosis means an imbalance of these good and bad bacteria, and you're going to hear the term dysbiosis a lot over the next half an hour or so. So, a healthy gut also can support a better perimenopause and postmenopause. So it's very key. It's very key to women in midlife. It's crucial to how we feel and how we go through our journey. So, what's happening with the gut and menopause? So, as we've established, estradiol lessens. What also happens naturally during menopause is cortisol, or the stress hormone, increases. And that's a big deal because it puts us into what is known as a pro-inflammatory state. So we can become more susceptible to aches and pains and things like dementia, weight gain, our bone density and bone strength can diminish, anxiety and depression. As well, what happens is gut motility, or the transition of food through that gut process, that digestive process, that can slow. And our stomach acid that we need to help with the breakdown of food also reduces. These just happen as we grow older and naturally. Another digestive fluid that's made by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, and it helps us digest fats, and that's bile that also reduces at this time. So, what this can do is it can disrupt that beautiful rhythm that's going on in this ecosystem we call our gut, and lead to dysbiosis, which, as I just mentioned before, is an imbalance of good and bad bacteria, which is a less than optimally healthy gut. So, this can look like bloating, flatulence, constipation, and weight gain. It can also lead to food sensitivities or intolerance, and the most common of these can be, and even if you've never experienced them before, but these can be dairy, gluten, refined carbohydrates, meats, and fats. That last one, the fats, is linked to that bile lessening. So there's a lot of change going on, but it's not all bad. Okay. Other changes that can happen at the beginning, when I spoke a little bit about how nutrient absorption can be impeded by a less than optimal gut, so that we may not absorb nutrients as well as we once did, and also poop changes, okay? And that can be the length or firmness of your stools, the ease at which you pass them, and the regularity with which you pass them. And actually, research published in the Menopause Journal showed that if you experience constipation, it can be associated with more severe menopause symptoms. So it's really in our best interest to put pooping up on that priority list. Over time, also, what can happen during these changes is, because the gut has a natural barrier or wall that helps keep it all protected, and everything that should stay in there doing its good, or doing its work. But over time, what can happen with this disruption or dysbiosis is that wall can weaken, and something like leaky gut can occur, which is when toxins, bacteria, and proteins like gluten can leak into the bloodstream. And this can cause inflammation, which we do not want. It can it's also believed to be behind some autoimmune diseases, but it can also lead to more severe symptoms like those headaches and mood swings, weight gain, aches and pains. So, what we're attributing to hormonal shifts, which obviously play a big role as well, but they could also be improved by improving your gut health as well. So, it's all interconnected. If you are experiencing gut issues, you are not alone. Okay, there was a very small US study done of, and it found that 51% of women in menopause experience digestive issues. I suspect that a lot more of those will come out, and that number might increase a little bit. Another study published in PubMed found that 38% of postmenopausal women reported altered bowel function, whereas 14% of premenopausal women had no experience of this. So it was weighted more on that midlife woman, which just underlines the fact, really. So, no conversation about gut health and menopause can go along without speaking about the estrobolome, which is an amazing. Actually, I'm not sure how long ago it was discovered, but it's actually a group of bacteria in our gut that is dedicated to metabolizing, circulating, and regulating estrogen. So it's all about estrogen, and it aids the transport of estrogen to the liver, where all estrogen goes to, all hormones go to be processed. Then it takes it, escorts it to the intestines, where it's excreted through poop or urine or recirculated. Now, if your estrobolome is working well, it means that an enzyme called beta glucuronidase is working well, and you've got enough of it. We're producing enough of it, because what that does is it reduces the chance of reabsorption and recirculation, and it boosts that. It really encourages that good elimination that we want to get rid of any excess estrogens or unwanted estrogens that have done their dash and need to leave our body. If that beta glucuronidase is not working well, then the estrogen will be recirculated, and we really do not want this, because it can lead to more severe symptoms. It can lead to estrogen dominance, where your estrogen is much higher in relation to progesterone, say, and that leads to its own symptoms, which are similar to severe menopause symptoms, and also increased disease. And that's the scary part. In fact, the recirculation of in the estrobolome of estrogen is being looked at. Much more study is needed, but they are wondering if there is a link between this recirculation and diseases like hormone sensitive cancers, obesity, endometriosis, and cardiovascular issues. So it's something to be aware of and something to avoid. So, does your gut need some love? Here are 12 signs, and if you are experiencing any of these, firstly, don't panic, because the beautiful thing about the gut, if you show it some love, it's going to love you right back. Um, so let's establish first if you've got gut issues. These are all synonymous with dysbiosis: anxiety, bloating, brain fog, constipation, and diarrhea could be in there too. Depression, digestive issues like gas and heartburn, frequently feeling unwell, food sensitivities, as I spoke about before, forgetfulness, um, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, mood swings, and skin issues such as eczema, psoriasis, and acne. A lot of people don't realize there's such a big link between the skin and gut health. What can cause an unhealthy gut, apart from things we've talked about like shifting hormones and growing older and the changes that come with that? Low fiber food, sugar, processed foods, lack of healthy fats, minimal fresh fruit and veg, not drinking enough water, chronic stress, antibiotics, and some prescription medications, disrupted sleep, not moving your beautiful body regularly, environmental toxins, and alcohol. So, we haven't got time to talk about all of these today, but I have taken six to look further into for you because you might take a couple of points that you can think, oh, I could change that really easily. And these are all quite simple steps that you could do, but I would recommend not trying to take everything on and change it all overnight. Just take a couple and maybe implement them as baby steps lead to transformation and change. Okay, so let's look at them. And my first one is a favourite because you've got to nourish to flourish those beautiful bugs that you want in there. Okay, so number one, lack of fibre is huge because most of us are starving for dietary fibre. We need about 30 to 35 grams per day, and most of us are only getting 10 to 15 grams per day. Now, what fibre does, it's a prebiotic and it helps feed a healthy and diverse microbiome, and those good bugs thrive on it, okay? And it gets you pooping. If you aim to poop once a day, you'll be doing really well. There was a wonderful study done in 2000, well, an interesting study done in 2021 by Zoe Health, and it was called the Blue Poop Challenge. And what they got people to do was, and you can find the recipe online, Medical News Today have it, I think. They got people to make a recipe and eat two blue muffins every morning and then see how long it took to transition through their body and they pooped out blue poo because the blue muffins had blue food colouring in them. And people can transition can take anywhere from 12 hours to a few days. They found the medium was about 28 hours, but the thing is a faster motility or faster transition of food through your process time is equates to a healthy gut, and it can also equate to less abdominal fat. So if you want to do your own, you can get some very inexpensive, I think, blue food colouring capsules that do the same thing for that purpose. Perhaps you could use your own food colouring. Just check the toxicity. It's not a diagnostic tool by any stretch of the imagination, but it's quite a fun thing to do, an interesting thing to do, the Blue Poop Challenge, to see how fast your food modality is. And foods rich in fibre are whole foods like whole grains, lots of plants, definitely with an emphasis on plants and nuts and seeds. It's suggested, and it seems like if you don't get a lot of fibre, this seems like a very tall order, okay? But 30 different types of fruit and veg per week is recommended. So it can seem like a lot, but boy, if you start doing that, you will feel amazing and you will also look amazing because it kind of the vibrancy glows out of you. Another way to get more fibre in your diet is to add 1 cup of lentils or beans when you eat, or every time you eat would be great, and to load up half of your plate with fresh vegetables. So, one fun fact was that our ancestors used to eat about 100 grams of fibre a day because they could not get to a supermarket and buy pre-packaged frozen meals, could they? They had to eat from the land, basically, and hence their fibre. So they probably have very good gut health. Number two, stress. Stress suppresses gorgeous, good, healthy gut bacteria, so it's really important to know. And because women in midlife and women in perimenopause and menopause are affected because estrogen or estradiol helps to regulate the stress hormone cortisol. So at this time of life, we have lower estrogen, and stress, Well, stress actually becomes more stressful. We cannot tolerate it as much as we once did. None of us love stress, but we can handle it much less than what we once did. And what that does is the cortisol puts us into fight or flight mode, and it dumps blood glucose, blood sugar, into our bloodstream. And it does this to give us the energy to run for our life, because it doesn't differentiate days of old when a warrior was chasing us with a spear, or if we're fighting with our daughter or sitting in traffic and experiencing road rage. It will still put us into fight or flight mode. And what happens here is deprioritizes digestion. And that can then lead to dysbiosis, a slower motility, so that blue poop will take a bit longer to come out the other end, and maybe things like constipation. So, yes, stress is hard to minimize, but if you can do it as much as you possibly can, it will repay you in spades. Number three is processed food. Refined processed food impacts the microbiota gut-brain axis. This is well known, and it increases the bad bacteria and the risk of dysbiosis. It also reduces that diversity of the good bugs that we're looking for. We want that really diverse population. And if nothing else convinces you, white sugar, white pasta, and white bread, because they are very refined, actually breed the bad bacteria. So the less we can have of them, the better. Also, processed food contains virtually no fibre, and usually lots and lots of refined sugars and salts and fats and additives like emulsifiers and colorants. So our bodies do not love it, but certainly in midlife, it loves us even less. There are complications to that, like even what you perceive as a good food, like maybe a plant-based frozen lasagna, but it depends on the ingredient labels. It's important to learn to read your ingredient labels, because if it's got a long list of what looks like additives in it, then it's a processed food. But more study is needed to dive into these nuances. So it's just basically best to avoid processed food as much as possible. Alcohol. So, gut bugs help us metabolize alcohol, which is one reason maybe the health of your gut could be why one person can drink a glass of wine and immediately be tipsy, whereas another person could drink three and be okay. But what those metabolites can do is overwhelm the GI tract and the liver, and in turn, this leads to a weakening of that gut barrier, increasing gut permeability and inflammation, which we do not want in our bodies or in our guts. And also, the alcohol can throw both the microbiome overall and that beautiful estrobiome into havoc. We love a tipple or two ourselves, so never, I'm not saying never say never, but it's just something that's really good to be aware of. And perhaps, when you are having a glass of wine, pair it with a beautiful fiber rich meal. Something to keep in mind. Number five is antibiotics, and this often includes other prescription meds. What they do is they disrupt the gut microbiome and contribute to dysbiosis. The University of Copenhagen actually did a study that found that gut bacteria can recover after antibiotic use in healthy people. But what they did find that even after 6 months, the gut still missed nine common beneficial bacterial species. So again, that's something to be aware of. Um, Mostly when we prescribe antibiotics now, it's also recommended that we take a probiotic, which helps feed the population of microbiome alongside that So if you don't get recommended that, it's suggested to always take a good uh, probiotic. But in our case, we will say symbiotic, which I'm going to explain to you in a few minutes, alongside your antibiotics and prescription meds. Number six is EDCs, which stands for endocrine disrupting chemicals and xenoestrogens. Now, these are sometimes called dirty estrogens, and you will find them in your personal care products, in your cleaning products, in the environment, and in some foods. And what they do is mimic our body's natural estrogen, and we do absorb them into our bodies, and they disrupt the estrobolome. And as we discussed earlier, if the estrobolome or that beta glucuronidase is not performing well, then the estrogens can't be processed, taken to the liver and processed, and they may be reabsorbed and recirculated. And if you don't remember when we were talking about the estrobolome before, this can lead to much more severe symptoms, and study is looking into the link between this recirculation and diseases like hormone sensitive cancers and obesity, endometriosis, and some heart disease. So, if you can opt for, I mean, I'm not saying throw out everything in your cleaning cupboard and in your bathroom, but if every time you use something up, if you opt for new, a more natural brand, and again get to know your ingredient labels, you'll be doing your gut some loving. So just to recap on that, xenoestrogens or endocrine disrupting chemicals can mimic natural estrogen and disrupt the estrobolome. So it's really important to be aware of that because not everybody is. So what can you do to love your gut? So it's going to love you right back. There is lots you can do. We're going to go through 12 daily habits. And as I said, if you don't do all of these, then don't try and take everything on overnight. Just implement them slowly. But you will transform not just your gut, but your life and your menopause journey, actually. Because this is all good advice for you. Helping you, supporting your hormones as well. So, number one, tweak your diet. Go for a naturally inflammatory diet, which is a Mediterranean style diet. Um, we suggest phytoestrogens, proteins, good fats, and fiber on the website. So do go into the library there and look that up. But certainly that's anti-inflammatory, and we want to avoid inflammation at all costs, particularly as just by being in midlife and menopause we are pro-inflammatory. And so avoiding sugar, dairy, wheat also, because these affect microbial diversity. Hydrate. Drink lots of lovely, pure, filtered water. If you can get a water filter, so much the better, because there are additives in just plain tap water. Eat high fiber foods, which are prebiotics that feed the lovely probiotics that you want an abundant and diverse population of. So high fiber foods, fresh fruit and veg, legumes, onion, garlic, brown rice, nuts and seeds, like just really beautiful. An emphasis on plants and an emphasis of living from the land, trees and gardens and things. Eat the rainbow. Go for that 30 different fresh fruit and veggies a week in Technicolor. And you will just become so vibrant, you won't believe it. Add in phytoestrogens. So phyto stands for plant and estrogen stands for estrogen, obviously. Now, these are plant estrogens, which are similar to the body's natural estrogen, and they can support a healthy estrobolome. These are things like chickpeas, tofu, tempeh, and lentils, but it's not limited to that. You can actually find a free phytoestrogen food list on our website at MenoMe.com. Meno hyphen me.com. So grab that there. I'll put the link in the chat when I'm in chat as well for you. Feast on fermented foods because these are really rich in live bacteria, and these include kefir, yogurt, sauerkraut, and there are some wonderful versions and flavors of sauerkraut out there now. Miso, kimchi, and apple cider vinegar. Wonderful stuff, wonderful. Chew slowly and often, and I know that sounds silly to try and chew for a long time slowly. I know, but the beautiful thing is in your saliva you have enzymes that help with that food breakdown process, so that's why that's recommended. Move that beautiful body of yours, not in a really harsh, full on way, because that will then tip you over into stress mode. But beautiful, moderate exercise can enhance those good gut guys, and also it supports your liver and estrogen. So we want that. Avoid stressful situations. I know when we were talking about stress before, you were probably rolling your eyes because how can you get away from stress? Life in the 21st century is stressful. Yeah, get that. So the caveat there is as much as possible, and perhaps if you can incorporate some processes that work with your vagus nerve and help you tolerate stress so much better, that's a great thing. And these can include breath work and meditation and mindfulness. Yoga has some wonderful moves in there, and breath work as well. And it's not woo woo, it's actually necessary, and it's nurturing self care, and so good for sanity as well. Rest, digest, and sleep. Like the tummy loves a good rest, especially at night. So I always recommend closing the kitchen 3 to 4 hours before bed. So it has time, the digestion has time to do its thing before you're going to sleep, so it won't disrupt your sleep as much, and sleep is the ultimate rejuvenation time. Now, yes, I get that sleep issues can be common during perimenopause and beyond, but bringing into your life a lot of these points here, or daily habits here, will also help you with sleep. And again, we have a free sleep sheet on the website if you'd like to go there and download that too. That's sorry, M-E-N-E, M-E-N-O hyphen me.com. Number 11 is poop. I mean, I hope by now you realize how important pooping is. Not for you, just even for your gut, but also for your life. Aim for at least once a day. You're looking for long sausage shape, that soft, firm in texture, and is pain free and strain free to pass. And that fiber will help you so much there. And that blue poop test will also tell you how you're going as well. And number 12, I kind of gave a page on all on its own because, as I alluded to before, the word symbiotic, that might not be a term that you've heard before, so it could be a complete life changer for you to add into these daily habits. So I wanted to explain it more. And to do that, I need to go into probiotics, prebiotics, which I'm sure you're all very well familiar with, as well as symbiotics. So just to reiterate, probiotics, we all have good and bad bacteria in our bodies, and probiotics are the gorgeous good bacteria that we want an abundant, diverse population of. We encourage as many good bugs in our body as we can. Prebiotics are non-digestible fibers from food and supplements, and probiotics just thrive on them. Like nourish and flourish, I said before, if you nourish your probiotics with prebiotics, they're going to flourish, and that's what we want. Synbiotics is the new term, and this is what you might love. Well, I do, because it's a blend of both of these things, probiotics and prebiotics, and the pairing work together in the digestive tract to create magic, basically. And now we found symbiotic and and an ingredient I'm going to tell you about because we looked at the problem that you guys were having, which was digestive issues in peri and post-menopause. We heard you being constantly challenged by bloating, gas, and poop problems. It's so common. Go into the research, and it's so common. And like I said to you earlier, I think it's going to be showing, research is going to be showing more about it. So what we did is we developed Happy Girl Tummy to help, and we designed it to naturally support that beautiful healthy gut microbiome, regular pooping, and overall good gut health. But what you may have learned here is by its very design, it and how the gut works is may also help support your immunity and your mood, as well as your general health and well-being. So Happy Go Tummy is actually a natural symbiotic in that it uses as a combination of both prebiotic and probiotic. The probiotic is L-rhamnosus. I'm saying that for your ease and mine, but that's what it's usually referred to as, L-rhamnosus. And this is a probiotic isolated and cultured from New Zealand cheese. The prebiotic we use in Happy Go Tummy is Livox, and that's an award-winning, multi-award-winning prebiotic, non-digestible fibre, and that nourishes the that's the prebiotic we use to nourish the microbiome in Happy Go Tummy. And just to reiterate what a synbiotic is a prebiotic working with a probiotic that actually feeds that probiotic as well as acting on the microbiome. So I hope that makes sense, but feel free to ask me any questions. So to wrap up, the gut speaks to your brain and your brain speaks to your gut. They're like best friends. They're very close, okay? So it's all intermingled with physical and emotional. So gut feelings are real. And it's vital we learn to listen to our gut because, as I said to you before, if you take care of your gut, it's going to take care of you, which is a beautiful thing. So we also talked about the brain gut axis today and how that's linked with menopause, and it definitely is. It's also not just to do with your digestion, it's to do with your mental health. 95% of your serotonin or happy hormone is produced there, and 70 to 80% of our immune cells can be found there. And the research on gut health overall is just scratching the surface, and that's even more so for gut health and menopause linking. It can get confusing at this stage because some medical conditions like liver and bowel disease and diverticulitis and some cancers can show up in a similar way to menopausal digestive issues. So if they are recurrent and persistent and very frequent, please go and see your GP or your gastroenterologist to just rule out. Chances are it's not going to be anything, but it's better to rule things out. So thank you so very much for joining me. I hope it was helpful. Okay, guys, thank you so much. See you soon.